Dr. Holmes to start us off with the introduction and kick us off.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I see a lot of familiar faces on here. Some folks I haven't seen in a while. And so good morning. And I'm just going to quickly share a little bit about this morning's How to Apply webinar, the Virginia Affordability and Adoption Grant Program. To make sure you're in the right place, it's a How to Apply webinar. And so with that, I'll ask Kim to advance, or Kayla advance to the next slide. All right, so this morning's agenda consists of the team's going to go do a program overview, explain why, the purpose and benefits of planning, who's eligible to apply, what the minimum requirements are for both the application and development of your plan, how communities will be selected, of course, so you all can learn about the CAM system, and also in addition, reporting requirements and reimbursements, and then just things to think about as you all are considering applying for the program. And then we'll close out with some Q&A. If you have any questions throughout the duration of the presentation, please feel free to raise your hand or put a question in the chat. We do have staff monitoring the chat this morning. And then I don't know if anyone's on the phone. We will give folks an opportunity who have dialed in this morning to join the conversation as well. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Cameron. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Holmes. So for just housekeeping, I'd like to make sure if we're not speaking, let's make sure we keep mute on so we can give everybody the opportunity to gather all the information, as well as this presentation is recorded for transparency purposes. We will make sure that resources are available after this presentation. All right, and with that said, it's time to kick off this amazing program that we have coming up here with DHCD. So this is the Virginia Affordability and Adoption Planning Grant Program, which is a planning grant that's geared towards localities, counties, cities, and state and federally recognized tribes. All right, so the main purpose of this, the planning is not necessarily meant to be, or the funding is not necessarily meant to be spent on all of the activities that's supposed to happen underneath the program. This is planning to take a look at what are the needs and the gaps within each locality or the tribal communities. So we're estimating the average grant be relatively around that 25,000 mark, but that should give each locality the opportunity to go in their own backyards, take a look at what are the gaps and the needs are, and identify the priorities as we start looking into these next phases where more federal funding will be coming down to the states. Next slide, please. All right, so briefly, I want to talk about the purpose and benefits of planning. So as everybody knows, the purpose is closing the digital divide. We want to be the first large state to achieve universal broadband and also give our community the necessary skills to fully function within society. The benefits of being able to look into the planning grant, being able to invest this money into our communities to find out where these gaps are as follows here on the screen. One, it gives us the opportunity to identify key potential stakeholders or partners. We want to find out who are going to be the key players in this game and find out who are going to be involved with the resources and implementing this action plan that we're putting together for the localities in the state as a whole. As well as the other benefits we have here, one, building an asset inventory. So we find out who has the resources. They're currently already doing digital opportunity work. Developing a needs assessment so we know where the gaps are, so we know exactly how to attack them. Developing a list of organizations of people who already are doing these digital opportunity works, and then also an implementation or action plan for future federal funding opportunities. Now, to talk about the eligible applicants, as said before, this is going to be counties, cities, and tribal governments, and this is federal and state recognized tribal governments. We want to give everyone the opportunity to look into their own backyards and start uncovering what are the gaps, what are how does the digital divide currently look within your community, and then start developing a plan of how we are going to slowly but surely close that digital divide. All right. The main thing I want you to know about these eligible applicants is, one, if there are two cities or two tribal governments that's going to be on the same application, the requirements are going to be based on each individual locality on its own. One city or one county cannot have an application with another city, and because one city has all the requirements, the other is good to go on the application. No, both of them need to meet full application requirements, as well as eligibility requirements on their own. As well as the state or federally recognized tribal governments or localities need to be the applying entity or the lead entity, but they can work with community development or community-based organizations to help develop their plan. Next slide, please. All right, so here's a bunch of words on the screen, but I'm gonna summarize it for you so we can take a look at what are the plan requirements. There are four main things that we want to take a look at. One is going to be the digital divide assessment. Two is going to be an asset inventory. Three is going to be an implementation strategy, and four being milestones and outcomes. So with the digital divide, we're looking at what's the current state within your community. What is the residents currently seeing? Also being able to quantify the disparities, take a look at the gaps, take a look at the needs, take a look at things by demographic, as well as identifying the barriers and then priorities of which we're going to overcome these barriers. With the asset inventory, we're looking at existing broadband related services and resources, as well as potential partners and stakeholders that will be involved within the implementation portion of this plan. For the implementation strategy, we're looking to develop clear and detailed implementation strategies that will explain how the grant funds will be utilized and how it addresses the needs of the community, as well as taking a look at what are the potential initiatives or programs, projects that could be implemented that will work with these covered populations that we're looking to address, as well as a clear description of how this will, how this is sustainable and how this will be something that we can plan long term and we can continue to invest within. For milestones and outcomes, we're looking to set measurable outcomes so you can track the progress and then have specific outcomes that we're looking for at the end of the grant period. We'll also be looking at a description of the methodology and monitoring, as well as taking a look at what is the evaluation of this plan. We can put together a plan, but we need to have at the end of it, taking a look at the evaluation and how do we plan to move forward if things aren't currently going where we would like them to, if we're not meeting the progress, or if we've gone well beyond the progress and we need to take a look at our goals again and set the bar a little bit higher. Next slide. Now for the application, the minimum requirements are these four high-level things, which one being the planning process, two being the budget and financial accountability, three being the overall quality of the application, and four being the organizational capacity. All right. And just real quick, I want to make sure, Kayla, you're taking a look in the chat. I want to make sure that all the slides are accessible to everybody and everybody can see and hear.
They're not sliding.
They're not sliding? Okay.
We're still on 5 and you've gone on.
All right. All right. Give me 1 second. I'm going to make sure that we're on the same page. If it doesn't catch back up or if this happens again, please feel free to come off of mute. Give me a heads up. We'll make sure that we'll take care of everything on the back end here. Okay. And how are we looking? Are we on 7 yet, or are we still on 5? Good to go? Beautiful. All right. So for everybody just to know in the background, we have Kayla Bravo in the background. She's helping us with the slides and in the chat. So she's doing an amazing job. She's going to keep us on key here. And if anything goes on, feel free to throw something in the chat and Kayla will help us address that. Okay. Now, as I was saying, we're on the application requirements, which one being planning process, two being the budget and financial accountability, three being the overall quality of the application, and four being the organizational capacity. With the planning process, we're looking for a description. We're looking for a timeline with key milestones so you can track the progress of the time as well as the energy invested. We're looking for community engagement and collaboration, as well as the discussion with the community around the importance of broadband. If you don't know the importance of broadband or how it can be used and how it's beneficial to you, adoption doesn't seem like something you're going to move towards. Under the budget, we're looking for a detailed line item budget, which is outlining how the grant funds will be utilized, as well as financial accountability and transparency. So we're going to be looking for a budget of how you plan to expend all the money And then after you expend the money, we're looking for all the receipts. We're looking for the invoices. We're looking for timesheets, all things that show how the money was invested. For the overall quality of the application, we're looking at a clear, coherent application. We're looking for clearly defined key milestones, as well as thoroughness, attention to detail, and professionalism. And last but absolutely not least, we're looking at organizational capacity. So just looking to see if your organization can administer the planning process and also monitor what's going on within the community. This is just the first step of many. We're looking to continue to invest federal funding downhill. But this capacity is going to be something that we're paying attention to as we're looking to build as we continue moving towards closing this digital divide. All right, next slide. And everybody feel free to, let me know, start waving your hands if we're not on slide 8. But here on slide 8, we're going to talk about the selection process. All right. So DHCD will review applications and approve awards monthly. Only applications that have been submitted before the 15th of each month will be reviewed at a time. I want to make sure that we understand that, because if you submit after the 15th, you will be considered for the next month, and then you will see your selection process, or you will see your decision on the award come for that following month. All right. If funds still remain afterwards, then applications will continue to be considered. And if the funding exceeds the funding available, then DHCD will conduct a competitive review. All right. And as before, the plan requirements are going to be the 4 categories that we're looking for the point system for scoring. We're going to be looking at your planning process and your description. How are you looking at your community and engagement? We're going to be looking at your budget, your financial accountability, the overall quality of the application, and your organization's capacity. Next slide. All right, so this may be the funnest slide of the presentation here. If you've worked with us in the past, you are familiar with CAMs, and for that, I apologize. No, if you are not familiar with CAMs, you will become very familiar. All right, so DHCD operates within the Central Application Management System, for short, CAMs. And each portion of the application, each portion of monitoring and managing the project will go through this system. So if you haven't already registered, then you'll find the link here on this page. And once again, we'll make sure that the resources are available. But this is going to be the central place where we utilize, or this is going to be the central system that we utilize to monitor the projects and take a look at what we have going on activity-wise, as well as this is where you're going to submit your remittances. So when you want that money back for the things you spent money on, this is going to be where you go. All right, next slide. All right, so reporting requirements. These reporting requirements and reimbursements will go through the CAM system, and there are 3 main things that I want us to pay attention to for this slide. One being, before we are able to execute a contract, before we are able to obligate funds, we need the most recent audit or financial documents on file in the CAM system. If these are not uploaded into the CAM system, we will not be able to move forward with the execution of the contract. We will not be able to reimburse funds. This will put you out of compliance, and our finance will not be able to kick funds down without, a check mark on compliance, as we all understand. Okay. Second being monthly reports. This is going to be where we keep track of all of the activities, all of the expenditures that happen within the month, and then also keeping up with the proposed timeline. If the timeline is moved back, then the monthly reports would be the time that we would say, hey, we may be a little bit behind due to this reason. This is now the updated timeline, and these are the updated outcomes that we're looking for during these periods. And last but not least, we're looking at the remittance request along with supporting documentation. I want to say this again for the people in the back. Remittance requests, including supporting documentation. What that's going to be for this program is we need the receipts, we need invoices, we need signed and certified timesheets. If you have a consultant, we need paperwork. We need all of these things that are showing how you expended the money from top to bottom. If there's $2.50 that's not accounted for with some form of documentation or support, then finance will not be able to kick that back out. All right, so I want to make sure that that's understood up front. I want to make sure that we cover all the holes, and if there are any questions regarding reporting, or remittance requests, we are here for technical assistance. I promise you, my phone is on. I will plug it up on the charger. Feel free to give me a call and I will work through it, because this may be something that is the toughest part of the project. Doing the activities and supporting the people in your community is the easy part. But once you have to look into the technical side and start pressing the buttons, that's where we may find some of the harder parts, or we may find some of the more frustrating parts. All right. So DHCD is here for technical assistance. Next slide, please. Now, this is going to be the overall process that we're looking at for the application. As said before, we're going to apply on CAMS, and then we're going to go through a monthly evaluation process. After we go through our merit review, our evaluation, we'll go through a selection process. And then we're going to look for the awardee or the grantee to then submit their most recent financial documents in CAMS before we are able to move forward. And then we'll be looking to executing the contract, looking into start conducting activities, as well as submitting monthly reports and remittance requests. Yes, I heard my name. How we doing?
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Okay, I'm listening to DHCD's meeting.
All right.
That sounds like a conveniently timed greeting outside of the Teams chat. So
It
I
was
think we
amazing.
push forward.
All right, next slide. Okay, so I want to give you guys a couple of recommendations as you're starting with thinking about the application, thinking about the program. And first thing first, we want you to start early with stakeholder engagement. All right, so start working with the people that are already doing this digital opportunity work. Find out who are your people. Find out who are going to be the people that you rub elbows with that help you get the work done. All right, so main thing that we're looking at in this is going to be identifying your stakeholders that will be involved in your management team. When the money comes down, as well as further federal funding, you're going to need these people that's helping you at the table, everybody's hands in the pot, saying, okay, well, we're going to do this activity over here. If we run this program, this is what we do. We'll report back. If you have somebody that works solely on finance, then you have that team for finance. You find out who are the people that are going to help you conduct the entire program. All right. On top of that, we're looking for the collaboration with community-based organizations to help build the community support. Once this program starts to move, once you start seeing the activities, once you start seeing the other programs here at DHCD start to finish, and you start seeing VADI start putting some things in the ground, all of a sudden, everything that we're doing is going to become very, very important, because now that we have the lines in the ground, we're going to need to know how to use all of the things we now have access to. So collaboration with your community-based organizations and the community as a whole to build that support is going to be huge as we start implementing these plans that we're developing. All right, next slide. Now, this is not an exhaustive list, but this is a list to just consider as potential partners or stakeholders as you're looking into that community engagement. So you have state government agencies, Virginia Department of Health, Virginia Department of Social Services, Virginia Department of Education. You have various community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, healthcare organizations and professionals, community action agencies. The list goes on. All right. So even down to small businesses, each of these individual organizations all play a part and they all have a hand in this conversation. All right. So this is, once again, this is not an exhaustive list. So please continue to look into the stakeholders that will be involved. If they're doing the work that you're doing, then they could be a good stakeholder for you. And just making sure that they are supporting you as we're continuing to move forward. All right. Next slide. Now here's some additional information. For our audit, the Office of Broadband will require applicants to comply with the Department of Housing and Community Development audit policy. You'll be able to find that resource here at this link, and we'll make sure that these things are available to you. For the public disclosure of applications, applicants should be aware that DHCD will make all or portions of the application under the grant, under the BEAD program available publicly for review. If there are any concerns regarding any public display of information, please reach out to DHCD staff and we will address that with you. All right. And Last, for additional federal requirements, DHCD reserves the right to include any additional reporting or compliance requirements during implementation period based upon requirements imposed by NTIA or NIST. All right, so if we get any information that comes down the ladder, we will make sure to reach out. We will send you an email. We will follow up and say that these are the requirements that are now required under federal requirements. All right, next slide. All right, and as said before, DHCD staff is available to provide technical assistance. We highly encourage technical assistance. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot an email to the Digital Opportunity email. Reach out. I'm pretty sure majority of the people on this line have my email. If not, I will make sure that it gets to you when we follow up with additional resources, but feel free to reach out. We are here for technical assistance. We have staff that is waiting. Once we have these questions coming in, we'll make sure to get these things answered for you. All right, so don't feel afraid. Reach out, email, shoot a call, do whatever you need to do, but let's make sure that we are able to assist you when you're starting the development of your application. All right, and next slide. All right, and with that being said, we are now at the Q&A portion of the conversation. I will invite Kayla Bravo to come off of mute, and if there are any questions that we have in the chat, feel free to read them. I would also invite all of you, if you would like to raise your hand, we could call on you one by one. Feel free to come off of mute, let us hear your voice and give us your question. All right, and with that said, I'd like to open it up for Q&A. All right, and we have Miss Martin, Ladina Martin.
Morning. I just want to thank you for this. I just want to clarify that we're talking about this planning we're talking about here is about adoption and engagement, right? It's not about the actual infrastructure, because most of us are working hard on infrastructure. Is that right?
Absolutely. So one, thank you for that question. Yes, this is going to be the adoption side of things. We're looking at people once the lines are down on the infrastructure side on our BEAD program, our VADI program, then we're looking at how are we able to support the access that they now have. So this is going to be based on giving the digital skills, digital literacy. How are we able to invite things that are not deployment based to support the community?
And a quick follow-up, if I might, just are there kind of model programs that you all have seen within the state or somewhere that would give us some ideas for what we might help us explore this?
Absolutely. So the first resource that I would actually point you towards is hopefully we'll get a finalized version, but we have released our digital opportunity plan that we pushed up to NTIA.
Okay.
Within that plan, we have taken a look at our regions. So we recently divided the Commonwealth into 9 different regions, worked with community action agencies, and had them develop plans of their own backyards. So they've given recommendations based on the region, as well as we've conducted case studies where we could take a look at the activities that they've done and then look at potentially scaling those activities. So the digital opportunity plan is the first place I would send you. And then from there, I would say start having these conversations with the stakeholders that'll be a part of your team and seeing, how we can brainstorm, where available. And I also would say that there are, in the digital opportunity plan, there's a case study from the Virginia Community Action Partnership. And within there, they give peer reviews of other community action agencies and taking a look at best practices of how to conduct these activities within their planning grants. So that would be something I'll tell you to take a look at, okay?
Great. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I also had a question in the chat, and I can just read it out. So if $25,000 is an average, do you have a max that you will fund?
So I'm not sure if we have a max. I know we're looking at the average being.
That is actually the max. We have based on the number of counties and cities and state and federally recognized tribes, 25,000 is actually the max for the program. Now, if we see less engagement, let's say all 100 plus don't apply, we may have to circle back. But the goal is to make sure every city and county and state and federally recognized tribe actually has at least $25,000 to start with.
Another question in the chat comes from Erica Tanner, and she asks, what costs are eligible for reimbursement?
Yeah, so costs eligible for reimbursement are going to be it's going to be similar to the activities under our digital opportunity program. It's going to be, and there will be a more comprehensive explanation of this that follows as we start getting into the implementation of the actual plans and start getting out the awards. But activities are going to be based on personnel that you have on the program, the fringe cost or the indirect cost that comes along with it, admin costs. There will probably be a budget line, I think, for there'll be budget line for blanking on some of the other ones, but you're going to have the personnel costs. You're going to have indirect costs that comes along with personnel, admin costs. If you have a consultant, then you'll have, a budget line of being able to hire a consultant to develop the plan. And then we'll make sure that we're working out. If there's things that don't fit directly within, we do have a miscellaneous category, but there will be things if they're not attached to digital opportunity, if they don't have that digital equity base, then they will not be approved under this program. Yes, Todd, how you doing?
Not bad. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well.
Okay, just as a point of clarification, looking at the slide about eligibility, I just want to clarify, planning district commissions are not eligible as an applicant for this, are they?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
However, Todd, if let's say your localities are interested in applying, you all could actually be the administrator. So the counties, you could bundle, like your counties can be bundled together and you all can be the administrator. And so we would, take an application, just you all are not directly the eligible applicant.
So if we were to do that, is 25,000 still the max?
Per locality, yes.
Per locality. Okay, all right, thank you.
And if you have any tribal governments, that would be the same max.
I don't think we do in our region, but thank you.
Jason came with another question in the chat. They ask, digital navigators serving individuals in need is often the most effective form of engagement for at-risk populations. Will personal costs for having navigators conduct needs assessments be covered by this grant?
I'm sorry,
Jason,
one
are
more
you talking
time.
about having them be actual salaried folks, or are they volunteers? Are you compensating them?
Yeah, we're talking about working with our existing digital navigators, but extending them to directly do engagement towards a planning process.
Yeah, as long as you keep one, please, please, please. We can't read everything. Keep timesheets of their
Yep.
time or certify their time. That's been the biggest piece we've seen as a struggle is the lack of keeping of records of time. And so if you are going to compensate them for their time, I would come up, if you all have a standard rate that you charge them, percentage of their time working on this needs assessment versus if they're working maybe in your local library. And so just the documentation on whatever you're going to get reimbursed for their time would have to be kept meticulously.
Absolutely. And I'm sorry, one follow-up. Would combined applications have a competitive advantage? I know that you guys mentioned that, if we're hitting the point where funds are scarce, that a competitive process would begin. Would a combined application have an advantage?
It's a first come, first served basis. To be honest with you, it's the reason we did that is because no perfect planning grant happens in a perfect application cycle. And that's a joke for my folks in economic development. And so we made it as flexible as possible. There's really no competitive advantage, to be honest with you, because we set aside enough money from that funding to fund every single locality.
Right.
That's a city and county and tribal and state government.
Awesome. Thank you.
Lisa K I'm sorry if I butchered your name, asked a question in the chat. Are jurisdictions that do not receive this planning grant precluded from applying or receiving future non-deployment BEAD funding opportunities?
No, this is really designed to help communities prepare. You know, we as a Commonwealth have focused primarily on deployment activities. And so this is really an opportunity for folks to do some local needs-based assessment. It does not preclude anyone from applying for future non-deployment funding. It's just a way to help communities have some localized data. And so if you've already done work within your community and you're able to apply for those funds once they're available, again, it doesn't give anyone a competitive advantage for any future BEAD funding. And the application opens today, Todd.
All right, and with that, I'll ask, do we have any other questions in the chat or here live? Okay, Kayla, how we doing in the chat? Okay. Well, I want to give one more round. Just ask if anybody has any last questions. Going once, going twice. Okay, so we're gonna treat this like a game show. It is sold. So thank you guys so much once again for your time. We thank you all for being here and gathering this information. If there's any other questions, please feel free to reach out to the Digital Opportunity inbox or any DHCD staff, and we will make sure to answer your questions. And with that said, I will give you all some time back in your day, and I will thank you again for being here. We look forward to your applications. Have a good one.